Today we're going to discuss why considering a career in a trade might be a better plan than going to college for more people than you might think. And we'll talk about that here in just a few seconds. Hey, this is Mike DeZinno, America's Blind Tradesman and the national spokesperson for the Million Job Movement. Before we go any further on this discussion, I just want to state clearly for the record, I am not against going to college. I went to college, but I found that there were limited jobs in that which I were pursuing as a career, and I actually met a guy pumping gas who had a PhD in what I was going to college for. I checked out what he said, found out it was true, and he was right. So I didn't go back to college to finish my degree, and I stayed working one of the trades that was supporting me and paying for my college in those days. Would you be surprised to learn that the majority of people in their lifetime who go into the trades will out-earn most people who go to college? It's true, and here's why. Only about 26 or 27% of Americans get to go to college. Half of them never get a degree. And they do get something to show for their effort. They get to keep the debt they incurred. And then the college has done nothing to advance their ability to earn, so now they've got a double whammy working against them. The average right now is 5 years and 4 months to get a 4-year degree, and there's reasons for that. We'll discuss that someday in another video. Most take a year or longer after college to find a job, and over 90% of them who find a job, the job is not in that which they earned a degree in. 4 million people a year graduate college to fill 2 million jobs that actually require a college degree. If you really want to win by going to college, the best degrees are get a degree in what they call a STEM career, and that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Unfortunately, science and mathematics is the area where for the last 25 years, the American high school graduate are getting weaker and weaker in and have poorer and poorer skills. Most people who pursue the STEM course of studies are foreign exchange students, not Americans. Americans are mostly liberal arts students. Think about this logically, pursuing a liberal arts degree. If the goal is to go into social studies or psychology or one of those liberal art pursuits, if the goal is to fix everything that's wrong with our society, then all those social service type jobs someday won't be needed. Or there'll be a lot fewer people needed to hold down one of those positions. It's kind of like the scientist who cured some world-dreaded disease. On the day he discovered the cure, he put tens of thousands of people around the world out of work who were pursuing the cure, including himself. Okay? So, again, logically, there's only so many liberal arts positions we can fill in our society and the economy. I was talking to a doctor also, a well-renowned surgeon, and he was telling me in one of his doctor magazines, he read a very discouraging article. They compared a doctor who incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to get his medical degree and start his career in his late 20s versus an 18-year-old kid who comes out of high school and lands a job as an apprentice in one of the licensed or certified trades like HVAC, electrical, or plumbing. And what happened was they said when you consider the cost of the knowledge and you consider the working career and getting started later in your working career, that the doctor actually net income-wise would not surpass that plumber or electrician until age 52 in net earnings. Amazing, huh? And if that young person in 4 or 5 years becomes licensed in that trade and becomes self-employed in their first 10 or 15 years of being on their own with that license, the doctor in his entire lifetime will never out-earn that tradesperson, net money. Very expensive to be a doctor, by the way. Here's a little bit more to consider. Let's talk about that 4 million coming out of college every year, competing for 2 million jobs. Compare that to going against one of the 7 million trade jobs that are already existing right now that require little or no experience. They'll train you on the job, so there's no expense to getting your first paycheck. So let's compare that against those 7 million jobs. What if they passed a federal law where for you to move ahead with your life, you had to buy a dump truck? Now, unfortunately, to fill those 4 million jobs a year, everybody had to buy a dump truck, but only 2 million people were going to actually get a job that required to own that dump truck. Think about this logically. Well, that means the other 2 million people, what are they going to do with the dump truck? They're going to have to drive it to work every day, park it in a parking lot, have no utilitarian purpose to it, except they're going to have to pay off the loan for that dump truck, which could be 100,000, could be $250,000, depends upon what kind of dump truck you get. Well, that's what's going on with college today. People are paying for a commodity that renders them no net value. And I'm not saying knowledge isn't good and worth having, but if you're looking at college as a way of advancing yourself and creating a lifestyle and a career, it's not the only path. And for most Americans, 3/4 of the average American entering the workforce, it is actually the path of least desirability. Also, coming out of college at age 23, 24 years old, looking for a job, it's a lot harder to convince some employer to turn over the reins to some young person who has no experience, especially when he has spent 35 or 40 years building his business, and it's a lot harder to convince that employer to start you out at $50,000 or $60,000 a year with no experience. As a licensed person, as a plumber or electrician or a certified HVAC guy, it's a lot easier to go to somebody's house at 23, 24 years old and tell them your hourly rate is $50 or $75 or $100 an hour, depending upon what market you're in the United States. But even at the $50 an hour, 40 hours a week, that's $100,000 a year. That's a six-figure income. And most college people do not have a shot at a six-figure income at any reasonable time frame until at least they're in their 30s or even 40s. If their college degree is in one of those areas where you could generate that kind of money. Also, I would state this for the record. The trades are the fairest place to be. They are the great equalizer in our society. I know this from personal experience, being a member of a minority of the disabled community. If you have the skill, if you have a good work ethic, if you have a good attitude, you're in. That's it. You got the job. If the boss can make money on you, if you're a self-liquidating liability, you've got the job. It's that simple. You're hired. Nothing else matters to the boss. The boss just doesn't care what gender you are, what color you are, what nationality you are, what church you do or don't go to. None of that matters. If the boss can make a buck on you, you got a job. And then after that, you just prove yourself by how hard you work and how effective you are at being a self-liquidating liability. It's all on you. It's the great equalizer. In some upcoming videos, we're going to prove how even personal wealth development and higher standards of living are more possible for people in the trades than they are for most of the people who will go to college. And we'll be showing actual numbers and statistics on that in some upcoming videos. In an interview, Mike Rowe from America's Dirtiest Jobs here, that great show. I love that show, and I love Mike Rowe. I think he's got a great sense of humor. On an interview talking about the show and all the seasons he did that show, he never got to say something. All but two of the people whose jobs he featured in those many seasons of the show, all but two were multi-millionaires. You'd never think it, doing the jobs they were doing. But again, they were doing jobs that their best kept secret. How to get rich in this country is to do a job nobody else thinks is valuable and be good at it, and you could get rich. All but two were millionaires. Amazing. And again, I state for the record, I have nothing against going to college, but one has to be very clear on why you need to go to college. And they need to be told the truth by their guidance counselor that what they're pursuing will or will not lead to a successful employment situation after college where they could pay off their college debt and afford to have a standard of living other than in their parents' basement. I had a professor friend just recently, again, reiterate something that a number of my teachers and professor friends have told me over the years, but especially going into the college environment, they're telling me that 70% of who is sitting in front of them the first semester every single year at the beginning of the new year do not belong in college. They are ill prepared They don't have the math skills, they don't have the communication skills, and they waste a lot of time trying to play catch-up remedial courses. It's part of the reason why it takes over 5 years now to get a college degree, especially when all of that kind of stuff can be addressed for free online. You can learn so many different ways online, and we'll be talking about that in the future here. You can help me find and locate those 1 million great Americans who deserve a high-paying, rewarding career in one of the trades simply by liking this video and leaving us a comment. We do appreciate the comments. And if you haven't already done so, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. The button will be there in a second, for America's Blind Tradesmen, so we can keep you in the loop and in the knowledge as we develop these videos. So like I say, you can help me help those 1 million deserving Americans. So until next time, this is Mike DeZinno, America's Blind Tradesman, saying stay safe, stay productive, and let's make America skilled again. See you on the next video. Ciao.